chapters of this book. In the first place, these encounters offer typical examples of an 18th century imperial regime seeking to consolidate its control over several very different territories by mapping their geographies, counting their people, numbering their houses, and for the first time learning more about their people's living conditions. More than generating mere accounting, these state-building practices sought eventually to replace traditional local relationships of power with new loyalties that tied individuals to the central state. To do so, however, meant breaking the traditional political dominance exercised by regional power brokers, the local nobility. In 1770, for example, the central government purposely avoided delegating the tasks of counting and description to the local nobility or even to the local clergy. Rather, the regime sent its own loyal instrument, the military, to ascertain the truth. In doing so, it bypassed the local nobility to strengthen an incipient bond between the local population and the empire. Second, Maria Theresa's enumerative project reflects some fundamentally new thinking by the Habsburg dynasty and its advisers about the proper relationship between a government and its subjects, both aristocrats and commoners alike. This new relationship between ruler and ruled saw the people of the empire in essentially comparable and interchangeable terms, rather than in terms of traditional hierarchies of privileged and less privileged classes, each with different sets of rights. A third theme that we repeatedly encounter arises from how local peasants engaged with the men sent to count and describe them. In towns and villages across the monarchy, peasants repeatedly demanded access to the visiting military representatives to complain to them about local conditions. What is important here is not the specific content of the complaints. Even some representatives of the military in 1770 doubted that what they heard was completely true, but rather the popular belief that one could complain to state officials, not local notables, to redress grievances. Peasants did not harbour naive beliefs in the innate goodness of a faraway ruler who would rectify local injustices once brought to her attention. The peasants who complained to the military appear to have been well aware of the strained relations between their empress and their local landlords. They took advantage of this situation by casting their lot most enthusiastically with the central state and demonstrating a hopeful confidence in its ability to act on their behalf. Here we have an early example of local people making empire their own by using its emerging structures to argue for their own agendas. From marginal to global. A centralized Habsburg state emerged in the second half of the 18th century out of various territories acquired by the Habsburg dynasties since the 13th century. Where exactly was this emerging new state located, and what kinds of populations did it encompass in the 18th century? In the 1780s, the Habsburg dynasty's holdings stretched from today's cities of Innsbruck in the west to Lviv in the east, from Milan and Florence on the Italian peninsula to Antwerp on the North Sea and Cluj in the Carpathian Mountains, from Prague in Bohemia to Vukovar and down to Belgrade in the south. The Habsburgs held territories that today are located in 12 different European countries, and that in the late 18th century included speakers of languages known today as Croatian, Czech, Flemish, French, German, Hungarian, Italian, Ladin, Polish, Romanian, Serb, Slovak, Slovene, Ukrainian, and Yiddish. This diversity extended to religious practice as well. Although the Roman Catholic Church traditionally held a privileged place in the Habsburgs' lands, their subjects also included Orthodox Christians, Greek Catholics or Uniates, Calvinists, Lutherans, Jews, Armenian Christians, and Unitarians. This linguistic and religious diversity was typical for larger states in early modern Europe, from the Spanish or French empires in the west to the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth or the emerging Russian Empire in the east. Because of the ways in which states gained or lost territories in war, through dynastic marriages or thanks to negotiated trades, their lands did not necessarily have any historical or cultural relationships to each other, nor were they necessarily even geographically contiguous. European dynastic states also did not rest on unified administrative institutions or unified cultural practices, such as common language use, and certainly not on a shared sense of identification among a ruler's subjects. Instead, Europe's dynasties treated territorial units as family